The day Adult Protective Services took my 87-year-old grandfather out of our home, my 7-year-old daughter chased their SUV down the driveway, crying so hard she could barely breathe. "Please, don't take Grandpa. He didn't do anything." The neighbors stood on their front lawns, watching. Some whispered. Some recorded everything on their phones. And standing in the middle of them, wearing her signature bright pink blazer, was HOA President Linda Parker. She smiled. Not because she thought she had saved an old man, because she thought she had finally destroyed my family. She had absolutely no idea that my grandfather had secretly recorded every conversation she had with us for the past 3 months. My name is Ethan Carter, and until 3 weeks ago, our neighborhood in Cedar Ridge, Colorado, felt like the safest place in America. My wife, Rachel, our daughter Emma, and my grandfather, Henry Carter, had lived together for nearly 6 years. Grandpa Henry wasn't just another elderly man. He had raised me after my parents died in a car accident. Everything I became was because of him. When he turned 87, Parkinson's disease made it difficult for him to walk without assistance. His hands shook. Sometimes he forgot little things, but his mind remained as sharp as ever. Every morning, I helped him shave before leaving for work. Rachel prepared his medications. Emma read books to him every afternoon after school. Our home was built around taking care of him. Then Linda Parker became HOA president. She believed she owned the neighborhood. If your grass was half an inch too long, she fined you. If your trash can stayed outside an hour late, she fined you. If your mailbox wasn't freshly painted, another violation appeared. Nobody challenged her. Until Grandpa did. One Saturday morning, Linda knocked on our front door, carrying another violation notice. She complained that Grandpa's wheelchair ramp was hurting community appearance. Grandpa calmly looked at her. "This ramp keeps me alive." She crossed her arms. "It lowers property values." Grandpa smiled. "My life is worth more than your property values." The neighbors quietly laughed. Linda's face turned bright red. From that day forward, everything changed. Our mailbox was suddenly too old. Our flowers violated HOA landscaping rules. Our flagpole was supposedly 1 inch taller than regulations allowed. Every week, another letter arrived. Every week, another fine. She wasn't enforcing rules anymore. She was punishing us. Then strange things began happening. Neighbors stopped talking to us. One woman whispered to Rachel in the grocery store, "I heard your grandfather spends all day alone." Rachel stared at her. "What are you talking about? He's never alone." The woman looked uncomfortable. That's not what Linda told everyone. Another neighbor claimed Grandpa was constantly screaming for help. Someone else insisted they had seen bruises on his arms. None of it was true. Yet somehow, people believed her. Grandpa never complained. Instead, he quietly placed a small digital recorder inside the pocket of his cardigan every morning. I noticed it one evening. "Grandpa, why are you carrying that?" He looked at me with a tired smile. "When people lie, Ethan, let them." He gently tapped the recorder. "But never let them lie without witnesses." At the time, I thought he was simply being cautious. I had no idea he was preparing for something much bigger. 2 weeks later, Rachel called me at work. Her voice was shaking. "Ethan, there are investigators here." I rushed home. 2 Adult Protective Services investigators stood in our living room with local deputies. They politely explained they had received multiple reports accusing us of neglecting Grandpa. One report claimed he wasn't being fed. Another claimed we locked him inside his bedroom. Another said we were stealing his retirement money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Grandpa calmly answered every question. He showed them his medication schedule, his doctor's treatment plan, his physical therapy appointments. Everything was perfectly documented. For a moment, I thought the nightmare was over. Then one investigator quietly said something that made my stomach drop. "Mr. Carter, we've also received statements from 6 different neighbors." 6 neighbors? How? They all repeated the exact same lies. Suddenly I understood. Linda hadn't simply filed one complaint. She had spent weeks poisoning the entire neighborhood against us. The investigators thanked us and left. Rachel collapsed onto the couch in tears. "We did everything right. Why is this happening?" Grandpa slowly reached into his pocket. He pressed the stop button on the recorder. "Because," he whispered, "some people don't stop until they destroy someone." I looked at him. "You've been recording today too?" He nodded. "Every day." The next morning, before sunrise, I heard tires outside our house. When I opened the curtains, 3 government vehicles were parked in front of our driveway. Grandpa looked at me quietly. I think they've come back. There was another knock at the door. This time, they weren't asking questions anymore. The second I opened the front door, I knew this wasn't another routine visit. Two adult protective services investigators stood beside three sheriff's deputies. Behind them sat a black county SUV with its rear door already open. One investigator looked at me with genuine sympathy. Mr. Carter, based on multiple sworn statements and the information currently available, we're placing Mr. Henry Carter in temporary protective care until this investigation is complete. Rachel gasped. Emma burst into tears. What? I shouted. You were inside this house yesterday. You saw how well he's cared for. I'm sorry, the investigator replied. This is only temporary. Then Linda Parker stepped onto the sidewalk. She wasn't there by accident. She had come to watch. With a smug smile, she folded her arms as neighbors gathered once again. Some even nodded as Grandpa was helped toward the SUV. Emma wrapped both arms around his waist. Please don't take my grandpa. Even one deputy had to look away. Grandpa gently kissed Emma's forehead. I'll be home soon, sweetheart. Then he looked directly at me. There was no fear in his eyes, only calm confidence. As the SUV pulled away, he tapped the left pocket of his cardigan, the same pocket where he'd kept that tiny recorder every day. At first, I thought he was simply saying goodbye. Hours later, my phone rang. It was Grandpa's attorney, Michael Dawson. Ethan, come to my office immediately. Bring every HOA letter Linda ever sent you. When we arrived, Grandpa was already there. APS had allowed him to meet with his attorney before moving him to temporary care. Grandpa placed the small digital recorder on the conference table. For 93 days, he said quietly, I recorded every conversation Linda had with me. Michael plugged the recorder into his laptop. The first recording filled the room. Linda's voice was crystal clear. Nobody believes old people anyway. The second recording was even worse. Once APS gets involved, your family will never get you back. Rachel covered her mouth. Then came another recording. Linda speaking to two neighbors. Just tell investigators you've seen bruises. They don't have to be real. They only need enough complaints. The room fell silent. Michael looked at us. This isn't just harassment. It's conspiracy, filing false reports, witness tampering. He immediately contacted the county investigator. The next morning, detectives interviewed every neighbor who had submitted statements. Within hours, the story began falling apart. One admitted Linda had written the statement herself. Another confessed she'd been told signing it was just an HOA petition. A third neighbor broke down crying. I never even saw Henry being neglected. By afternoon, detectives obtained Linda's phone records, group messages, emails, even text messages instructing neighbors what to tell APS. Everything matched Grandpa's recordings. Late that evening, the lead detective called Michael. We have enough. The following morning, police cruisers stopped outside Linda's house. This time, the entire neighborhood came outside again. Only now, nobody was smiling. Two detectives walked to her front door. Linda opened it confidently. I'm sure you're here because of those terrible people across the street. One detective interrupted. Linda Parker, we have a warrant for your arrest. Her smile disappeared. What? You are being charged with filing false reports, attempting to interfere with an elder protection investigation, witness intimidation, and conspiracy. The same neighbors who had once believed her watched in complete silence as she was placed in handcuffs. Someone quietly whispered. So Henry was telling the truth. 48 hours later, APS officially closed the case. Their final report stated there had never been any evidence of neglect. Instead, investigators praised our family for providing exceptional care. Grandpa finally walked back through our front door. Emma ran into his arms so hard that even he laughed. I told you I'd come home. A month later, the HOA held an emergency election. Linda had resigned. Nearly every homeowner attended. For the first time in years, people actually apologized. One elderly neighbor stood before Grandpa. I should have asked you what was happening instead of believing rumors. Grandpa smiled gently. It's never too late to choose the truth. A civil lawsuit followed. Linda's insurance refused to cover intentional misconduct. She was personally responsible for hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages, legal fees, and emotional distress. Her reputation disappeared overnight. But Grandpa never celebrated her downfall. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, I asked him the question that had been bothering me for weeks. When did you know she'd go this far? He looked out across the quiet neighborhood. The day she cared more about winning than about an old man's dignity. Then he handed me the tiny recorder. Keep this. I smiled. I hope I never have to use it. Grandpa chuckled. I hope so too. He looked toward Emma playing in the front yard. But remember this, Ethan. The truth doesn't always speak the loudest. Sometimes, it simply records and waits. That tiny recorder now sits in my desk drawer, not as a reminder of what Linda did, but as proof that lies can be loud. Yet the truth only needs one chance to be heard.